A black maid fluently speaks Dutch during a hotel call, shocking a European billionaire nearby. Her hidden past as a diplomacy student is revealed, thrusting her from cleaning rooms to a high-stakes role in global investment. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gripping stories. The penthouse suite of the Grand Lumiere Hotel was a gilded arena, its marble floors blazing under chandeliers that shattered light like diamonds, the air thick with the musk of power and privilege. Nia Okoye shoved her cleaning cart through the opulent chaos. Her black uniform frayed her dark skin slick with sweat from a merciless shift. Her hands, scarred by years of grinding labor, danced with ruthless precision, scouring surfaces, yanking silk pillows into place. Each move a silent rebellion against the exhaustion clawing her bones. To the elite, she was a ghost, a maid erased by their indifference, but her eyes burned with a mind sharper than their wealth. Her apron buzzed a phone call. She scanned the room, spotting only a man at the bar, his back turned, lost in his drink. She answered, her voice a low blade slicing into flawless Dutch, each word a command. Ja, die onderhandelingen zijn cruciaal. Stuur de contracten. Nu ik zal ze vanavond doornemen. Yes, the negotiations are crucial. Send the contracts now. I'll review them tonight. She hung up, pocketing the phone, blind to the man now frozen, his whiskey glass shattering on the marble with a crack like gunfire. Peter van der Meer, a Dutch billionaire with eyes like ice and a suit carved from money, spun around, his voice a roar. You? How the hell do you speak Dutch like that? Naya's heart exploded in her chest, but she faced him, her stance a fortress, her voice steel despite the ambush. I learned it, sir. Now let me work. Peter's gaze was a flamethrower, his tone a guillotine. Learned it? That's not some app's Dutch, that's native. Who are you, really? His words were a siege, his presence suffocating the room. Nia's past, a diplomacy dream crushed to save her brother, surged like a tidal wave, but she stood unbowed. Nia Okoye, housekeeper. That's all you get. Peter's face twisted, his hunger for answers, a beast unleashed. He ripped out his phone, snarling into it. Elise, get me Nia Okoye's file, every damn detail now. Nia's pulse thundered, but she resumed cleaning her movements, a war cry refusing to crumble under his glare. 3 staff members polishing silver nearby bared their teeth in vicious grins, one hissing, "She's dead meat." Elise, Peter's assistant, stormed in her heels, hammering the floor like bullets, a tablet blazing in her hands, her voice venom incarnate. Okoye's file, sir. No education, no brains, just a scrub. She slammed the tablet at Peter, her sneer. A blade? She's a con, faking Dutch for attention. The staff howled, one spitting. She's scamming the rich guy. Peter's eyes tore through the file, his voice a whip. This is trash, dig deeper, university's records, everything. Elise's face contorted, her voice a shriek. She's a lying nobody, sir. Nia's fists clenched her cloth, crumpling her, silence a volcano, her eyes ablaze with rage barely leashed. Peter ignored Elise, his voice a cannon. Mr. Okoye, penthouse, boardroom, 20 minutes. Move, or I'll drag you there. He stormed out, Elise trailing her glare a death sentence. The staff's laughter was a storm, one jeering. She's dreaming big now. Alone, Nia's breath roared her mind, a battlefield. Her past ruling lied in university's diplomacy program, fluent in 4 languages, abandoned to raise her orphan brother, was a secret she'd entombed. Peter's command was a spark threatening to set her world ablaze. 20 minutes later, the boardroom was a war room, its obsidian walls framing a city pulsing below. Peter enthroned at the head, Elise beside him, her tablet flashing fresh intel. Nia strode in her uniform, a defiant flag against the room's splendor, her chin a spear, her heart a drumbeat. Peter's voice was a gauntlet. Your file's a lie, Leiden University diplomacy prodigy. Top student, then you vanished. Why? Nia's throat seized, but she locked eyes with him, voice unyielding. My parents burned in a crash. My brother was 8. I chose him over my future. Peter surged forward, his eyes drilling her soul. You threw away genius for that. Nia's voice was molten iron. Family is my genius. I'd burn the world for him. Elise's laugh was a shard of ice, her voice a lash. Pathetic, you're a mop pusher, not a player here. Peter's fist smashed the table, the cracks silencing her. His voice a decree. Shut up, Elise, Miss Okoye. I run a global fund. I need a Dutch translator for an African summit tomorrow and a lead for our African ventures. You're in. The room imploded, Elise's face crumpling, her voice a scream. "She's a maid, sir!" "You're insane!" Peter's eyes seared Naya, his voice a monolith. "She's sharper than my board. Except or I find someone who will." Naya's chest roared opportunity, a hurricane. She nodded, voice a vow. "I'm in." Elise exploded, her tablet crashing down, her voice a banshee's wail. "You'll both burn for this! She's a fraud!" She charged out the door, slamming like a bomb. The staff outside froze, their smirks, obliterated whispers, erupting like wildfire. Peter thrust a card at Nia, his voice a challenge. "Dawn Summit Prep, don't fail me." Nia seized the card, her berry past a phoenix rising, ready to conquer a war she was forged for. The Grand Lumiere Hotel's penthouse boardroom was a battleground, its sleek walls pulsing with the city's heartbeat beyond the glass. Nia Okoye stood at the room's center. Her borrowed blazer, a stark upgrade from her maid's uniform. Her dark eyes blazing with resolve. The air crackled with tension as Pieter Vandermeer, the Dutch billionaire, leaned back in his chair, his gaze a mix of expectation and scrutiny. A complex Dutch-African trade contract glowed on a projector screen, its dense legal jargon a gauntlet for Nia's first test as his translator. Elise, Peter's assistant, stood by the door, her tablet clutched like a weapon, her face twisted with barely concealed fury. The hotel staff outside whispered venomously, their sneers seeping through the walls, betting on Nia's failure. Elise's voice sliced the silence, dripping with malice. "She'll choke, sir. A maid can't handle this." Peter's eyes flicked to her sharp. "Then let her prove you wrong." Nia's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, her voice steady. "I'm ready." Peter nodded, pointing to the contract. "Translate it, now." Nia scanned the document, her mind racing through Dutch legalese, her years at Leiden University flooding back. She began, her voice clear and commanding. "De overeenkomst stelt een joint venture voor tussen Van Meer Enterprises en de Afrikaanse Handelsunie met een focus op duurzame energieprojecten. The agreement proposes a joint venture between Van Meer Enterprises and the African Trade Union focusing on sustainable energy projects." Her translation into English was flawless, each clause unraveled with precision, her Dutch accent native, her English crisp. Peter's eyes widened, a rare smile tugging at his lips. But Elise's smirk vanished, her knuckles white. The boardroom's other aides, scribbling notes, exchanged stunned glances, their skepticism crumbling. Nia finished, her gaze locking with Peter's. "That's the deal. Shall I draft a response?" Peter leaned forward, voice low. "Do it." Elise exploded, her voice a shriek. "This is a farce. She's a fraud, sir. She's reading from somewhere." She lunged for the projector, yanking cables, the screen flickering. Peter slammed his fist, the sound a gunshot. "Enough, Elise. Sit down or get out." Elise froze, her face purple, but she backed off, her glare a promise of vengeance. Nia, unfazed, pulled out a notepad, drafting a response in Dutch, her pen flying. She handed it to Peter, who scanned it, his nod deepening. "Perfect. You're leading the summit prep." The room gasped, but Elise's voice cut through venomous. "You're betting millions on a maid. She'll ruin us." Peter's eyes were ice. "She's earned it. You haven't." The meeting adjourned, but Elise cornered Nia in the hall, her voice a hiss. "I've checked your past, Okoye. Dropped out, no degree, just a sob story. I'll expose you." Nia met her gaze, voice unyielding. "Try it. I'm not hiding." Elise smirked, storming off her heels, echoing like war drums. Nia's stomach churned. She knew Elise was plotting, and her new role was a tightrope. Later in a private office, Peter briefed Nia on the summit, his voice intense. "We're negotiating with the African Trade Union. They're tough and my team's weak. I need you to translate and advise." Nia nodded, her mind racing, but a knock interrupted Lila, a junior maid and Nia's friend, her face pale. "Nia, Elise is spreading lies downstairs saying you faked your resume. Staff are turning on you." Nia's jaw tightened, but she squeezed Lila's hand. "Let them talk. I'll prove them wrong." Lila hesitated, whispering, "Be careful." Elise was on the phone with someone sounded dangerous. Nia's blood ran cold, but she nodded, dismissing Lila as Peter watched, his brow furrowed. "Trouble?" he asked. Nia shook her head, voice firm. "Just noise. I'm focused." But her mind screamed Elise was a viper and vipers strike. That night, Nia sat in a borrowed suite, poring over summit documents, her brother's photo on the desk, his young face a reminder of her sacrifice. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Quit or your past becomes public." Naya deleted it, her resolve hardening. She opened her laptop, finding an email from Elise C. Dead to Peter's team with a doctored transcript of Naya's Leiden records claiming she'd cheated her way through. Naya's heart sank, but she forwarded it to Peter, attaching proof of her academic honors, her voice shaking as she typed, "I'm no fraud." Dawn broke and Nia entered the summit prep room. The African Trade Union's delegates already seated, their faces stern. Peter greeted her, his voice low. "I saw your email. Elise is suspended pending investigation. Lead this, Nia." Nia nodded, but the delegate's leader, a towering man named Kwame, eyed her, his voice skeptical. "A translator?" "We expected a diplomat." Nia's spine stiffened, her voice cutting. "You're getting both." She launched into the discussion, translating Dutch proposals into English. Her insights on African markets razor sharp, drawn from years of self-study. Kwame's skepticism faded, his nod, reluctant but real. Peter watched, his faith vindicated, but a commotion erupted outside. Elise, barred from the room, screaming, "She's a liar, you'll all pay." Security dragged her away, her threats echoing. Nia's hands trembled, but she pressed on, sealing the session with a draft agreement. Peter pulled her aside, his voice firm. "You're not just a translator. You're my Africa lead. But Elise has allies. Watch your back." Nia Bawash nodded, her heart a furnace ready to face the storm Elise was brewing. The Grand Lumiere Hotel's executive suite was a pressure cooker, its opulent walls closing in as Nia Okoye sat at a glass desk, her laptop glowing with summit documents. Her borrowed blazer hung loosely, a stark reminder of her leap from Maid to Peter Vandermeer's Africa lead. The city skyline glittered beyond the windows, but Nia's mind was a storm haunted by Elise's threats and the venomous whispers of hotel staff branding her a fraud. Her phone lay silent, but the memory of that anonymous text, "Quit or your past becomes public," gnawed at her. She glanced at a photo of her brother Kofi, his gap-toothed grin a lifeline. She'd abandoned her diplomacy dreams at Leiden University to raise him after their parents' crash, working grueling shifts to keep him fed, clothed, and dreaming bigger than she ever could. Now her new role was a chance to reclaim that lost future, but the weight of Elise's vendetta threatened to crush it. A knock shattered her thoughts. Lila, the junior maid, slipped in, her eyes wide with fear. "Nia, Elise is back. She's in the staff room spreading lies about you cheating at Leiden. She's got documents." Nia's heart lurched, but her voice was steel. "Fake documents. I've already sent Peter the truth." Lila hesitated, whispering, "She's meeting someone tonight. Some guy. I heard her say, 'Take care of Okoye.'" Nia's blood ran cold, but she squeezed Lila's shoulder. "Keep watch. I'll handle it." Lila nodded, slipping out as Nia's phone buzzed. Peter, his voice clipped. "Summit room now. You're leading a video call with the African Trade Union." Nia grabbed her laptop, her pulse racing. Elise's scheming was escalating, but she couldn't falter. The summit room was a high-tech fortress, screens lining the walls, Peter already seated with aides, his eyes sharp. The African Trade Union's delegates appeared on screen, led by Kwame, his stern face unyielding. Peter nodded to Nia. "You're on. Translate and negotiate." Nia opened the provided dossier, her eyes narrowing. Key figures were wrong, timelines misaligned. Her gut screamed sabotage. She glanced at Peter, voice low. "These numbers are off." Peter's jaw tightened. "Fix it." Nia's mind raced, pulling data from memory, her Leiden training kicking in. She addressed Kwame in English, her voice commanding. "Mr. Kwame, the dossier's figures are incorrect. The energy project's output is 1.2 gigawatts, not 0.8, with a timeline of 18 months, not 24. She switched to Dutch for Peter's team, her translation seamless. De voorgestelde cijfers zijn onjuist. The output is 1.2 gigawatt and the timeline is 18 maanden. The proposed figures are incorrect. The output is 1.2 gigawatts and the timeline is 18 months. Kwame's eyes widened, his nod grudging. "Impressive catch, Ms. Okoye. Proceed." Peter's gaze burned with approval, but Nia's relief was short-lived. An aide, a wiry man named Hugo, smirked, whispering to another lucky guess. Nia's fists clenched, but she pressed on negotiating terms, her insights on African markets razor-sharp. The call ended with a tentative deal, Kwame's respect earned, but Hugo's sneer lingered. As the team dispersed, Peter pulled Nia aside, his voice low. "Elise prepped that dossier. She's crossed a line." Nia's heart sank. She'd suspected sabotage, but the proof was a gut punch. "She's out for blood, sir." Peter's eyes darkened. "I'm launching an investigation." "Stay sharp." Nia nodded, but dread coiled in her chest. Back in her suite, she found an email from an anonymous account, a leaked photo of her and Kofi taken outside their old apartment, with a message, "Stop or he pays." Nia's breath caught, her hands shaking as she called Kofi now. 16, his voice sleepy but safe. "Sis, what's wrong?" She forced calm. "Just checking in. Lock the doors." Hanging up, she forwarded the email to Peter, her resolve hardening. Elise wasn't just after her job, she was targeting her family. That evening, Nia slipped into the hotel's staff room, the air thick with cigarette smoke and resentment. Staff glared, one muttering traitor. Nia ignored them, spotting Elise in a corner, whispering to a man in a dark jacket, his face obscured. Nia crept closer, catching Elise's words. "Make it quick. She's a problem." The man nodded, slipping out a back exit. Nia's heart pounded. She needed proof. She followed, staying in shadows, the hotel's service corridors, a labyrinth. The man entered a storage room, and Nia peered through a crack, seeing him load a flash drive into a laptop, files labeled Okoye. Fraud. Her blood boiled. Elise was fabricating evidence. Nia pulled out her phone recording, but a floorboard creaked. The man spun his eyes, locking on her, a knife gleaming in his hand. "Wrong move, lady," he growled, lunging. Nia dodged the blade, grazing her arm, blood seeping through her sleeve. She grabbed a mop, swinging it, cracking his wrist. He roared, dropping the knife, and Nia tackled him, pinning him long enough to snatch the flash drive. She bolted his shouts, echoing, staff rushing in their faces, a mix of shock and scorn. Nia sprinted to Peter's office, bursting and bloodied but unbowed, tossing the flash drive on his desk. "Elise hired him to frame me. It's all here." Peter's face darkened, scanning the drive's files, forged transcripts, fake emails. He slammed his phone, barking, "Security detain Elise now." Nia panted, her arm throbbing, but her voice was iron. "She's not just after me. She's working with someone bigger." Peter's eyes met hers, his voice grim. "Then we find them. You're not alone in this." The hotel's alarms blared, security swarming, but Nia knew Elise's ally was still out there, and Kofi's safety hung in the balance. Her fight was just beginning. The Grand Lumiere Hotel's security office was a claustrophobic bunker, its monitors flickering with grainy footage of Elise's frantic escape attempt, her heels skidding across the lobby before guards tackled her. Nia Okoye stood by a desk, her arm bandaged from the storage room brawl, her dark eyes locked on the screen. The stolen flash drive, now in Peter Vandermeer's hands, held Elise's forged files, fake transcripts, painting Nia as a Leiden dropout cheat. Peter, his suit rumpled from a sleepless night, paced, his voice a low growl. "She's detained, but her accomplice is gone." "Who's she working with?" Nia's jaw tightened, the anonymous threat to her brother Kofi. "Stop, or he pays," burning in her mind. "Someone with resources, sir. That man wasn't a thug. He had a plan." Peter's eyes met hers, grim. "We're digging into Elise's contacts. You focus on the summit. The African Trade Union's deal is on the line." Nia nodded, her heart a war drum. But dread coiled. She knew Elise's ally was still out there, and Kofi's safety hung by a thread. The summit room was a high-stakes arena, screens blazing with data. The African Trade Union's delegates on a video feed, Kwame's stern face dominating. Nia, now in a tailored blazer, stood at the head, her presence commanding, despite the whispers of hotel staff outside, their venom branding her a traitor. Peter sat beside her, his faith unshaken, but Hugo, the smirking aide, leaned back, his eyes glinting with doubt. Kwame spoke, his voice heavy. "Ms. Okoye, we've seen your revisions. Impressive, but we need guarantees, local labor, no exploitation." Nia's voice was clear, translating Peter's Dutch response. "We garanderen lokale werkgelegenheid en ethische praktijken met audits door onafhankelijke partijen." We guarantee local employment and ethical practices with audits by independent parties. Her English translation was razor sharp, her insights on African labor markets drawing nods from Kwame. The deal edged closer, but Hugo interrupted, his voice oily. "Can we trust her numbers?" "She's no expert." Nia's eyes flashed, but she held her ground, voice cutting. "My numbers come from primary sources, Mr. Hugo." "Care to challenge them?" Kwame chuckled, but Peter's glare silenced Hugo, who slunk back, his smirk fading. The call ended with a handshake agreement. Kwame's respect cemented, but Nia's triumph was short-lived. As the team dispersed, Peter's phone buzzed a security alert. Elise's laptop was hacked remotely. Someone's leaking your personal data, Nia. Her stomach dropped, the threat to Kofi roaring back. She checked her phone, a new email public this time, blasting her Leiden dropout status across social media, twisted to paint her as a liar. The hotel staff's whispers outside turned to shouts, at one yelling, "She's a fake, Nia's." Hands shook, but she forwarded the email to Peter. Voice steady, "Elise's ally did this. We need to trace it." Peter nodded, barking into his phone. "Get it on this now." But Nia knew time was running out. That night, she slipped into the hotel's IT room, a maze of servers humming with data. Lila, her loyal friend, stood guard, whispering, "I saw Hugo meeting a guy in a suit, same vibe as Elise's thug." Nia's pulse raced. She suspected Hugo was Elise's new pawn. She logged into the hotel's network using skills honed during late-night Leiden study sessions and traced the leak to an IP address linked to a shell company, Vortex Holdings. Her blood ran cold. Vortex was a rival fund gunning for Peter's African deal. Before she could download proof, the door burst open, Hugo flanked by a man in a dark suit, a silenced pistol in his hand. "You're too nosy," Okoye, Hugo snarled. Nia dove behind a server, Lila screaming as the man fired bullets sparking off metal. Nia grabbed a fire extinguisher, spraying foam, blinding Hugo. She tackled the gunman, wrestling the pistol free, her arms screaming in pain. Lila swung a chair, cracking Hugo's knees, dropping him. Nia zip-tied their wrists, panting, and yanked the man's phone, its screen flashing Vortex's logo. "Got you," she growled, forwarding the data to Peter. Security stormed in, cuffing Hugo and the gunman, Hugo screaming, "You'll pay for this!" Nia staggered to Peter's office, blood seeping through her bandage, tossing the phone on his desk. Vortex is behind Elise. They want the deal. Peter's face darkened, scanning the phone's files, emails, tying Vortex to Elise's leaks and Hugo's betrayal. He slammed his fist, voice a vow. "They're done. I'm calling the feds." Nia's voice was iron. "And Kofi, they're targeting him." Peter met her gaze, his voice firm. "We're moving him to a safe house. You're not fighting alone." Security whisked Nia to a hotel safe room, her phone buzzing. Kofi safe, his voice shaky. "Sis, what's happening?" Nia forced calm. "Stay put. I'm handling it." Hanging up, she clutched the summit dossier, her mind on Vortex's next move. The hotel was a fortress, no guards patrolling, but Nia knew the war was escalating. She opened her laptop, drafting a press statement to counter the leaks, her heart a furnace ready to burn, Vortex to the ground. The Grand Lumiere Hotel was a fortress under siege, its polished corridors now patrolled by armed security, the air thick with the stench of betrayal. Nia Okoye stood in a fortified suite, her bandaged arm throbbing, her dark eyes scanning a laptop screen, blazing with Vortex Holdings' leaked emails, proof of their plot to sabotage Peter Vandermeer's African deal. Her brother Kofi was safe in a safe house, his voice still echoing from their last call. "Sis, don't let them win." Peter paced, his face a mask of fury, his phone buzzing with updates from the feds chasing Vortex's network. The summit with the African Trade Union was hours away, and Nia's role as lead negotiator was a beacon of hope amid the chaos. But the hotel staff's whispers calling her a fraud, a traitor, cut deeper than the knife wound on her arm. Lila, her loyal friend, slipped in her voice, urgent. "Nia, the press is outside screaming for answers. Vortex's leaks are everywhere. They're saying you're a con artist." Nia's jaw clenched, her press statement drafted to counter the lies now on Peter's desk. "Let them scream. We're hitting back." Peter nodded, his voice grim. "The feds traced Vortex's hacker to a local firm. We're raiding them tonight. You focus on the summit." Nia's heart pounded. She knew Vortex wouldn't stop, and Kofi's safety hung by a thread. The summit room was a war zone of stakes, its screens alive with data, the African Trade Union's delegates waiting in a Johannesburg conference room. Kwame, their leader, eyed Nia through the video feed, his voice heavy. "So, Okoye, your reputation's under fire. Can we trust you?" Nia stood tall, her blazer sharp, her voice a blade. "Judge me by my work, not Vortex's lies. I'm here to deliver." She launched into the negotiation, her insights on sustainable energy markets, razor-sharp, drawn from years of self-study. Kwame's delegates leaned in, their skepticism fading, but a new face, a woman named Thandi, spoke, her tone icy. "Your leaks suggest fraud. Why should we sign? Nia's pulse spiked, but she met Thondi's gaze. Those leaks are Vortex's smear campaign. My record's clean, asked Leiden University. Kwame nodded, but Thondi's eyes narrowed her doubt a wall. Nia pushed on, outlining a deal prioritizing local jobs, her arguments ironclad. The session ended with a provisional agreement, Kwame's handshake, a hard-won victory, but Thondi's silence was a warning. As the feed cut, Peter gripped Nia's shoulder, his voice low. You're winning them over, but Vortex is desperate. They'll hit harder. Nia's phone buzzed a security alert, suspicious vehicle near Kofi's safe house. Her blood ran cold, her voice shaking as she called the safe house. Kofi answered, safe but scared. Sis, there's a car circling. Nia barked into her radio. Secure him now. Peter's face darkened, his voice a vow. We're moving him again. Stay here. But Nia shook her head, voice fierce. I'm going. He's my brother. Peter relented, assigning guards to escort her. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a quiet district, its windows dark as Nia's SUV screeched to a stop. Guards flanked her, guns drawn, as she burst inside, finding Kofi huddled with a security officer. She pulled him into a fierce embrace, her voice breaking. You're okay. Kofi nodded, but a crash outside shattered the moment a black van rammed the gate, men in ski masks spilling out, automatic rifles blazing. Nia dove, shielding Kofi, bullets chewing through walls. The guards returned, fire sparks flying, but the attackers were relentless, shouting, Get the kid! Nia grabbed a kitchen knife, her training from Leiden's crisis simulations kicking in. She yanked Kofi behind a couch, whispering, Stay low. A masked man breached the door, but Nia lunged, slashing his arm, dropping him. She seized his rifle, firing a burst to pin the others, her hands steady despite the chaos. Peter's backup roared in SUVs, flooding the lock guards, overwhelming the attackers. Nia held Kofi close, her breath ragged, as the last gunman fled, tires screeching into the night. Peter arrived, his face pale, barking orders to secure the area. Vortex hired them, he growled, scanning the wreckage. Nia's voice was ice. They're after Kofi to break me. Peter met her gaze, his voice firm. They won't touch him again. We're doubling security. Nia nodded, but her mind raced. The fleeing gunman wore a Vortex logo on his sleeve. She handed Peter the rifle, its serial number a lead. Trace this, they're not done. Back at the hotel, Nia settled Kofi in a new safe room, his eyes wide but trusting. You're a superhero, sis, he whispered. She forced a smile, her heart aching, and returned to the summit prep room, finding Peter with a Fed contact, their faces grim. Vortex's CEO, Roland Klein, is behind this, Peter said. He's meeting investors tonight, pushing to steal our deal. Nia's eyes blazed, her voice a vow. Then we crash it, Peter nodded, handing her a dossier on Klein's meeting. You're leading the charge. Expose him. Nia gripped the dossier, her mind a furnace ready to burn Vortex's empire to ashes while protecting Kofi at all costs. The hotel pulsed with danger, but Nia was a warrior forged in sacrifice, unstoppable in her fight. The Meridian Club's rooftop loomed like a battlefield above the city, its sleek glass walls reflecting a skyline ablaze with tension. Nia Okoye stood in the shadows, her black dress a sharp contrast to the glittering elite below her bandaged arm, a badge of survival. In her clutch was a secure drive loaded with damning evidence, Vortex Holdings' emails, financials, and footage tying their CEO Roland Klein to the attack on her brother Kofi's safe house. Peter Vandermeer, his suit creased from a sleepless night, huddled with a team of feds and security, his voice a razor. Klein's investor meeting is downstairs now. Nia, you expose him. Lila, Nia's trusted aide, gripped a tablet, streaming the club's cameras, her voice shaking. He's got armed guards, Nia. This is a trap, Nia's eyes burning, Kofi's scared voice echoing. Sis, don't let them win. Then we spring it, she said, her resolve ironclad. The hotel staff's taunts, calling her a fraud, were nothing compared to the fight for her brother's life and Peter's African deal. The club's main hall was a den of green velvet drapes framing tables where investors sipped champagne, their laughter masking Vortex's rot. Nia slipped through the crowd, her earpiece crackling with Peter's updates. Feds are in position. Get Klein's confession. Klein, a lean man with a predator's smirk, stood at a podium, pitching Vortex's rival African, deal, his voice oily. Nia stepped forward, her presence a lightning bolt, investors turning, their murmurs rising. Klein's eyes locked on her, his smile venomous. Okoye Van Meer's errand girl. Here to grovel. Nia's voice was a thunderclap. I'm here to bear you, Klein. She raised the drive, her words slicing the air. Vortex bribed officials, stole markets, and tried to kill my family to sink our deal. The crowd gasped, investors recoiling, but Klein's laugh was a blade. A maid's delusions. You're pathetic! Nia activated the recorder, Klein's voice booming orders to sabotage Peter threats against Kofi. The room froze, investors shouting, but Klein charged, smashing the drive under his boot, his roar deafening. You've got nothing. Nia's smile was lethal. It's live streamed. Lila projected the files onto a massive screen, Vortex's emails, bank records, safe house attack footage. The hall erupted, investors screaming betrayal, some fleeing. Klein's guards drew pistols, but Peter's team stormed in, feds shouting, "Drop your weapons!" Gunfire exploded, chandeliers shattering, tables flipping as Vortex's men fought back. Nia dove, pulling Lila behind a pillar, bullets tearing through wood. "Stay low," she yelled, snatching a drop gun, firing back her shots. Precise, dropping a guard. Peter battled through, disarming another, his voice a bellow. "Nia, take Klein." She spotted him bolting for a service exit, his face ashen. Nia sprinted, dodging a stray bullet, her dress ripping as she tackled Klein, slamming him into a wall. "It's over," she snarled, cuffing his wrists with zip ties. Klein spat his voice, poison. "Vortex is bigger than me, Okoye. You're dead." Nia's grip tightened, her voice a vow. "Then I'll hunt them all." Feds swarmed, dragging Klein away, his screams lost in the chaos. Investors, now witnesses, demanded justice, their phones filming the takedown. Peter reached Nia, blood on his cheek, his voice steady. "You saved the deal." Nia nodded, but Klein's warning rang. Vortex's network was vast. Back at the hotel, the summit room was a triumph. Kwame's video feed confirming the African trade union's signed deal, his voice warm. "Ms. Okoye, you're a force." Nia exhaled, but Lila burst in, her face pale. "Nia, Vortex's allies are flooding the news with lies saying you framed Klein." Nia's heart sank, but she opened her laptop, drafting a press conference to crush the smears. Peter watched, his voice firm. "We'll stand with you, but Vortex's reach is deep. They'll strike again." Nia's eyes blazed, her voice unyielding. "Let them. I'm ready." She sent the press script, but a security alert flashed new footage from Kofi's safe house. A figure in a dark coat, watching, face obscured. Nia's blood ran cold. Vortex was circling. Peter gripped her arm, his voice a pledge. "Kofi's under triple guard. You're not alone." Nia called Kofi, his voice steady. "Sis, I'm safe. Go get him." Her heart swelled and she turned to Peter. "I'm leading the press conference. Time to end Vortex's lies." Peter nodded, pride in his eyes. "You're not just a leader, you're a revolution." The hotel lobby buzzed with reporters, lights flashing, but Nia stood tall, her dossier a weapon, her spirit a firestorm. Vortex's empire was cracking, but their final blow was coming, and Nia was forged to meet it. The Grand Lumiere Hotel's grand ballroom was a crucible of light and shadow, its chandeliers blazing above a sea of reporters, their cameras flashing like gunfire. Nia Okoye stood at a podium, her tailored suit a sharp contrast to the bandage peeking from her sleeve, her dark eyes burning with unyielding resolve. The press conference was her battlefield, a chance to crush Vortex Holdings' lies and cement her role as Peter Vandermeer's Africa lead. Her dossier, packed with evidence of Vortex's crimes from bribes to the attack on Kofi's safe house, lay open, a weapon ready to fire. Peter stood beside her, his face a fortress of support, while Lila, her aide, monitored live feeds, her tablet glowing with social media backlash fueled by Vortex's allies. The crowd's murmurs were a storm, some shouting fraud, others demanding truth. Nia gripped the podium, her voice a thunderclap. Vortex Holdings tried to steal a deal that empowers Africa. They bribed, lied, and attacked my family to silence me. Here's the proof. She clicked a remote, projecting Vortex's emails, bank records, and safe house footage onto a massive screen. The room erupted, reporters scrambling, their questions a barrage. A journalist, a wiry man with a sneer, stood, his voice cutting. "You're a dropout, Maid, Ms. Okoye. Why trust you over Vortex?" Nia's eyes locked on him, her voice steel. "I'm a diplomat by training, a sister by choice, and a leader by necessity. Vortex's lies can't change facts." The crowd quieted, some nodding, but the journalist pressed, "What about the leaked Leiden records?" Nia's smile was a blade. Forged by Vortex, verified by Leiden. Check your inbox, sent the originals. Gasps rippled phones buzzing as reporters confirmed her claim. Peter leaned in, whispering, "You've got them." But a new alert flashed on Lila's tablet, security footage from the hotel's loading dock showing a figure in a dark coat planning a device. Nia's heart lurched Vortex's shadow, the same figure from Kofi's safe house. She signaled Peter, voice low. "They're here." Peter's eyes darkened, barking into his earpiece. "Lock down the dock." Nia pressed on her voice, rising. Vortex's CEO, Roland Klein, is in custody, but their network runs deep. "We're exposing them starting now." The screen shifted, revealing Vortex's ties to a rival fund, Horizon Global, led by a shadowy figure, Marcus Vane. The crowd roared, but a deafening blast shook the ballroom, glass shattering as smoke poured from the dock. Screams erupted, reporters diving under tables, security rushing in. Nia grabbed Lila, pulling her behind the podium, her voice fierce. "Stay down." Peter drew a concealed pistol, shouting, "Evacuate," but Nia spotted a man in a dark coat slipping through the chaos, a detonator in hand. Her blood surged. She knew he was Vane's enforcer. Nia bolted, dodging debris, her suit tearing as she tackled the man, slamming him into a wall. "Drop it," she snarled, wrenching the detonator free. He swung, a knife grazing her shoulder, but Nia kneed his gut, dropping him. She zip-tied his wrists, panting, as security swarmed, cuffing him. Peter reached her, his face pale. "You're insane, but you saved us." Nia's voice was grim. "Vane sent him. He's Vortex's real power." The ballroom was a wreck, but the press, now witnesses, filmed the aftermath, their headlines shifting Nia, the hero who stopped a bombing. Back in the summit room, Kwame's video feed flickered, his voice grave. "Ms. Okoye, your courage seals our deal. Africa stands with you." Nia exhaled, the African Trade Union's contract signed, but her mind was on Vane. Peter's Fed contact burst in, his voice urgent. "Vane's in Dubai, untouchable for now, but we're tracking him." Nia's eyes blazed, her voice a vow. "He's not untouchable." She opened her laptop, drafting a global press release exposing Vane's role, her fingers flying. Lila watched, her voice awed. "You're unstoppable, Nia." Nia smiled, but a new alert pinged Kofi's safe house. Another figure spotted nearby. Her heart stopped, but Peter gripped her shoulder, his voice firm. "He's safe, triple guarded. We're moving him to a new location." Nia nodded, calling Kofi, his voice steady. "Sis, I'm good. Finish this." Her throat tightened, her resolve a furnace. She turned to Peter, voice resolute. "I want to lead the Dubai operation. Vane ends now." Peter's eyes widened, but he nodded, pride in his gaze. "You're not just my lead, you're my partner." The hotel was a hive of Feds reporters and staff, their whispers now of awe, not scorn. Nia stood at the suite's window, the city a battlefield, below her dossier, a sword. Vane's network was wounded, but their final strike was brewing, and Nia was ready to cut it down for Kofi, for Africa, for her reclaimed future. The Grand Lumiere Hotel's Grand Gala Hall was a beacon of triumph, its golden chandeliers casting a warm glow over tables draped in white linen, where global dignitaries and African Trade Union delegates mingled. Nia Okoye stood at the center, her elegant gown a far cry from her maid's uniform, her dark eyes radiant with pride. The African deal was signed, a multi-billion-dollar partnership for sustainable energy, and Nia's leadership had sealed it. Peter Vandermeer, now her partner in the fund, stood beside her, his smile genuine, while Lila, her aide, coordinated with event staff, her tablet a constant hum. Kofi, safe and beaming, sat at a front table, his high school graduation cap, a symbol of Nia's sacrifice. The crowd's applause was a wave honoring Nia's journey from housekeeper to global leader. But the shadow of Marcus Vane, Vortex Holdings' mastermind, lingered, his Dubai hideout a final battleground. The gala opened with Peter's speech, his voice resonant. "Nia Okoye turned our vision into reality, defying lies and violence to bring hope to Africa." The room roared, but Nia's mind flashed to Vane's enforcer, the dark-coated figure who'd vanished after the ballroom bombing. Her press release exposing Vane had sparked global outrage, forcing him underground, but she knew he'd strike again. As Peter handed her the microphone, a Fed contact slipped her a note Vane cited in Dubai. "Raid tonight." Nia's heart pounded, but she faced the crowd, her voice a clarion call. "This deal isn't mine, it's ours, for every community, lifted at every child who dreams big." She glanced at Kofi, her voice softening. "I fought for my brother, and now for all of you." The applause was deafening. Kofi's grin, a lighthouse but a flicker of movement caught her eye. A waiter, his face too sharp, slipping toward a side exit. Her instincts screamed Vane's last play. She signaled Lila, whispering, "Tail him." Lila nodded, vanishing into the crowd as Naya continued, her voice unwavering, detailing the deal's impact. The waiter reached the service quarter, but Lila tackled him, wrenching a syringe from his hand, its contents glowing with poison. Security swarmed, cuffing him, his screams echoing as Lila radioed Nia. "He's Vane's man, targeted you." Nia's blood ran cold, but she finished her speech, the crowd oblivious, their cheers a shield. Peter pulled her aside, his voice grim. "The feds are ready for Dubai. You're leading the briefing." Naya nodded, her resolve, a furnace she'd end Vane tonight. Hours later, a private jet landed in Dubai, its tarmac shimmering under desert heat. Naya, in tactical gear, briefed a Fed task force, her dossier on Vane's compound, a map of his downfall. "He's got mercenaries, cameras, in a panic room," she said, voice steady. "We hit fast, no mistakes." Peter, armed and beside her, nodded, his trust absolute. The raid was a storm, the team breaching Vane's compound under moonlight, silenced rifles cutting through guards. Nia led a squad, dodging tripwires, her training from Leiden's crisis simulations guiding her. They reached Vane's office, finding him at a desk, his hawkish face pale, a laptop streaming funds to offshore accounts. "You're too late, Okoye," he sneered, grabbing a pistol. Nia dove, tackling him, the gun skidding across the floor. They grappled, Vane's strength brutal, but Nia slammed his head into the desk, dazing him. She cuffed him, panting, as Pieter secured the laptop, its data a goldmine. "Got him!" Nia growled, dragging Vane to his feet. Feds stormed in, seizing him, his curses fading as they hauled him away. The compound was a hive of evidence files tying Vane to Vortex's global network, now dismantled. Back at the hotel, the gala's after-party buzzed, delegates toasting Naya's victory. Kofi rushed to her, hugging tight, his voice proud. "You're my hero, sis." Nia's eyes welled, her heart full. Peter joined them, his voice warm. "You're not just my partner, you're family." He handed her a contract, permanent co-chair of the fund, with a scholarship for Kofi's university. Naya signed, her hand steady, her future secure. Lila approached, grinning, her tablet, showing news of Vortex collapses. Okoye hailed as hero. The crowd chanted Nia's name, their respect a crown. Later, on the hotel's rooftop, Nia stood alone, the city, a tapestry below. Kofi was safe, her dreams reborn, her legacy etched in Africa's future. A Fed contact texted, "Vane's network is done. You broke them." Nia smiled, pocketing her phone, her gaze on the horizon. From maid to mogul, she'd forged a path through fire, and no shadow could dim her light. She stepped back into the gala, Kofi's laughter guiding her, ready for whatever came next. From a hotel, Maid's hidden brilliance to a global stage, Nia Okoye rose above prejudice to lead with strength, saving her brother and securing a legacy for Africa. Thank you for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell to catch our next thrilling tale.